First Contact's price. Zarkax had studied thousands of civilizations across the galaxy, but none had fascinated him quite like the humans. From his cloaked observation vessel orbiting their world, he watched with growing concern as their atmosphere turned increasingly toxic, their oceans rose, and their populations struggled with mounting natural disasters. Yet they persisted, adapting and fighting against their own extinction with remarkable determination. His mandibles clicked in agitation as he reviewed the latest atmospheric readings. The humans had perhaps 5 years left before their planet became uninhabitable, far too little time for them to develop the necessary technology to save themselves. The Supreme Council's directives were clear: non-interference with pre-spacefaring species. But something about these humans made him hesitate to simply document their extinction like so many others before them. Analysis complete. Observer Zarkax. His ship's AI announced. Probability of species survival without intervention. 0.89%. Zarkax's secondary hearts pulsed with emotion as he watched a human settlement battle against another massive storm through his ship's sensors. They fought with such spirit, even now, even when the odds were insurmountable. His research had shown him their potential, their art, their music, their incredible capacity for innovation and adaptation. To let such potential simply vanish. "Show me the preservation protocols," he commanded suddenly. The AI displayed a series of complex atmospheric modification procedures, technology far beyond what humanity currently possessed. Technology that could save their world, but at the cost of breaking the most sacred law of his people. A warning flashed across his console. Another observation vessel had entered the system. Soon, they would arrive to confirm his reports and log Earth as another failed civilization. His time to decide was running out. "Begin atmospheric modification sequence," Zarkax ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of his choice, "and prepare a first contact protocol." The ship's AI hesitated, a programmed response to commands that violated core directives. "Observer Zarkax, this action will result in immediate removal of your observer status and potential exile from the collective. Do you wish to proceed?" "Execute command." As his ship's systems began their work, Zarkax composed a message that would change 2 civilizations forever. The humans would survive, yes, but they would know they owed their existence to another species. Such a debt would shape their development, their culture, their very identity for generations to come. The first changes in Earth's atmosphere were already visible from orbit when the other observation vessel arrived. Zarkax watched his sensors track its approach, knowing his career, and likely his freedom, were over. But as he observed emergency teams around the world react with confusion to the suddenly improving conditions, he felt a deep satisfaction. "Incoming transmission from observer vessel Falcon," the AI announced. "Accept," Zarkax said, straightening his posture as the holographic image of Observer Supreme Kelethar materialized before him. The elder observer's scales had darkened with age, but his eyes still burned with the same intensity Zarkax remembered from his training days. "Explain yourself, Observer Zarkax," Kelethar demanded, his tone carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. "I have chosen to preserve rather than merely observe," Zarkax replied. "The humans possess qualities that could benefit the entire galaxy. Their extinction would be a loss to us all. You have violated our most sacred law. The consequences will be severe, yes, but perhaps not as severe as allowing a species with such potential to perish when we could have prevented it." Kelthar's expression shifted subtly. Was that approval hidden beneath the official disapproval? "You understand that humanity will now be bound to the collective through debt. That this burden you've placed upon them may shape their development in ways we cannot predict. I understand that I've given them a chance to develop it all," Zarkax countered. "What they do with that chance, and how they choose to view their debt, will be up to them." The atmospheric processors continued their work as the 2 observers spoke. Already, weather patterns were stabilizing across the planet. Soon, humanity would realize something fundamental had changed about their world. Soon, They would learn they were not alone in the universe, and that their survival had come with strings attached. "The Council will want to speak with you directly," Kelthor said finally. "But first, we must manage this situation. Humanity must be informed of what has transpired, and what is expected of them in return." Zarkax felt his scales ripple with anticipation. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. How would they react to learning their salvation had come at the price of cosmic debt? As if reading his thoughts, Kelthar added, "You've studied them extensively. How do you think they'll respond to this intervention?" "Humans are unpredictable," Zarkax admitted, "but they possess a strong sense of honor and obligation. They understand debt. What they may not understand, what may surprise us all, is how they choose to repay it." The first official contact was scheduled for the following day. Representatives from every major human government would be gathered, and the truth would be revealed. Zarkax knew his career was over, but as he prepared the presentation that would introduce humanity to the wider galaxy, he couldn't bring himself to regret his choice. Let the Council judge him. Let them strip him of his rank and privileges. He had preserved something precious, something unique in all the galaxy, and perhaps, just perhaps, humanity would prove that breaking the rules had been worth it. As Earth's skies cleared for the first time in decades, Zarkax allowed himself a moment of hope. The humans now owed the collective a debt that could never truly be repaid. But something told him humanity would find a way to surprise them all with their response to this cosmic obligation. The real question wasn't whether humanity would repay their debt. It was whether the galaxy was ready for what would happen when humans felt they owed you a favor. The weight of gratitude. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the collective's delegation, her heart racing, but her voice steady. 5 years had passed since humanity learned of their cosmic debt, and this was their first formal presentation to their benefactors. Behind her, holographic displays showed the rapid advancement of human technology since the intervention, but not in the way the aliens had expected. As you can see, she gestured to the complex molecular diagrams floating in the air. "We've developed methods to repair damaged ecosystems at rates previously thought impossible. Our atmospheric restoration techniques have already exceeded the efficiency of the systems you provided us." The collective representatives shifted uncomfortably in their environmental suits. The lead delegate, Valthor, leaned forward with an expression Sarah had learned to recognize as confusion despite his alien features. "This is unexpected," Valthor said carefully. "We had anticipated your species would focus on developing space travel capabilities to better serve the collective's existing needs." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "With respect, that's not how humans handle debts. We don't simply serve. We learn, we improve, and we give back more than we received." The data continued scrolling across the displays. Breakthrough after breakthrough in environmental science, ecological restoration, and planetary healing. Each discovery built upon the foundation of knowledge the collective had shared, but took it in directions their alien benefactors had never considered. "Impossible," another delegate muttered. "Your species has had access to our technology for merely 5 years. These advances should have taken decades, if not centuries." "That's the thing about humans," Sarah replied, thinking back to the day they'd learned of Zarkax's intervention. "When we owe someone, it drives us to heights we never thought possible. Your people saved our world, so we decided to learn how to save others." The presentation continued, but Sarah's mind drifted to the real breakthrough they hadn't revealed yet. In their desperate drive to understand and repay their debt, humanity had stumbled upon something revolutionary, something that would change the nature of planetary restoration forever. Back in her lab, Sarah's team was putting the finishing touches on Project Phoenix, a self-replicating swarm of nanobots that could restore dead worlds to life in months rather than millennia. The collective had shown humanity how to save one world. In return, humanity would show them how to save thousands. "There's more," Sarah continued, noting how the delegates' postures had shifted from condescending to attentive. "We've identified 37 worlds within collective space that are suffering from similar environmental degradation to what Earth once faced. We're prepared to begin restoration projects on all of them, immediately. Valthor's scales rippled, a sign of strong emotion. Sarah had learned. You misunderstand your position, Dr. Chen. Your species owes a debt. You are not in a position to offer aid to the collective. On the contrary, Sarah countered, pulling up new data. By our calculations, the resources required to save Earth amounted to approximately 0.001% of the collective's annual energy expenditure. Our new restoration methods are 300 times more efficient. Applying them to these 37 worlds would constitute a repayment of 11,100% of our original debt. The chamber fell silent. Sarah could almost see the calculations running behind the delegates' eyes as they processed the implications. Humanity wasn't just trying to repay their debt. They were about to make the collective indebted to them. This is not how things are done, Valthor finally stated, but his tone had lost its earlier certainty. No, Sarah agreed. This is how humans do things. You saved our world, so we learned everything we could about saving worlds. You showed us mercy, so we're expanding that mercy exponentially. You helped us when we were dying, so we're going to help everyone we can. She paused, letting the weight of her next words sink in. The real question isn't whether we'll repay our debt. It's whether the collective is prepared for what happens when humanity feels grateful. The delegates huddled together, speaking rapidly in their native tongue. Sarah waited patiently, knowing what would come next. She'd seen the reports. Worlds throughout collective space were dying, their populations facing the same crisis Earth had narrowly escaped. The collective's traditional methods couldn't save them all in time, but humanity could. The Council will need to discuss this, Valthor finally said. This is unprecedented. Of course, Sarah nodded, but don't take too long. Those 37 worlds don't have much time, and we're ready to begin immediately. After all, we hate being in debt. As the delegates filed out, Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Somewhere out there, a disgraced observer named Zarkax would soon learn that his faith in humanity had been well placed. They weren't just going to repay their debt. They were going to transform the galaxy's understanding of obligation and gratitude. The weight of cosmic debt had not crushed humanity. Instead, it had driven them to soar higher than anyone, human or alien, had dreamed possible. And this was just the beginning. Innovation born from necessity. The collective's central archives had never seen such activity. Researcher Kilvin watched in astonishment as humans darted between the towering data stacks, their environmental suits gleaming under the purple light of the archive crystals. They had been granted limited access to study the collective's historical records, but what they were doing defied all expectations. Found another one, a human researcher called out, her voice crackling through the communication system. Civilization number 2947 died out due to solar radiation changes. Their world is still within habitable parameters for restoration. Kilvin's tendrils twitched nervously. In just 3 months, the humans had identified more potentially restorable civilizations than the collective had in a millennium. But it wasn't just their efficiency that disturbed him. It was their enthusiasm. Commander James Rodriguez approached, carrying a data crystal that pulsed with ancient memories. Your people have been watching civilizations die for millions of years, he said, his tone carefully neutral but his eyes intense. Why didn't you help them like you helped us? It was not our way, Kilvin replied, reciting the ancient doctrine. Observation without interference ensures the natural development of. But you did interfere with us, Rodriguez interrupted. And now we're going to make that mean something. The human turned to display a holographic map of the galaxy, now dotted with thousands of points of light, each representing a world that could be restored. The scope of their ambition made Kilvin's primary heart skip a beat. Your debt is already considered repaid, he reminded them. The Council accepted your restoration of the 37 worlds as more than sufficient compensation. Rodriguez smiled, and Kelvin recognized the expression humans made when they knew something others didn't. This isn't about debt anymore. This is about what's right. This is about what we can do with the knowledge you gave us. In the months since Project Phoenix had succeeded beyond all expectations, humanity had not slowed down. Instead, they had accelerated their efforts, pushing the boundaries of what the collective thought possible. Their restoration technology had evolved from simple environmental repair to full planetary resurrection. News of their successes had spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had long accepted the collective's policy of non-interference began to question centuries of tradition. If humans could save dead worlds, why had the collective always chosen to simply watch them die? "We've completed the analysis of the ancient sector," another human scientist announced, approaching with a new set of data crystals. 89% of the extinct civilizations there could have been saved with current technology. We can still save their worlds, make them habitable again for new life. Kelvin felt his professional detachment crumbling. But the resources required, the energy needed, already solved, Rodriguez said, pulling up another display. "Remember how we reversed our own atmospheric damage? We've adapted that technology to create energy extraction systems that are 4 times more efficient than anything the collective currently uses. We can power the entire restoration project and still have energy to spare." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just changing worlds, they were changing the fundamental way the collective operated. Their drive to repay their debt had evolved into something far more profound, a mission to correct millions of years of passive observation. "The Council is divided," Kelvin admitted quietly. "Some say you're disrupting the natural order. Others," he hesitated, "others are beginning to question everything we've believed for eons." "Good," Rodriguez replied. "Questions lead to answers. Answers lead to action. And action." He gestured to the map of potential restoration sites. "Action leads to life." A commotion near the main archive terminal drew their attention. A young human researcher was practically bouncing with excitement as she decoded an ancient data stream. "Commander, we found records of the original civilization that developed the observation protocols. Their homeworld, it's still there, just outside the ancient sector. Completely dead, but within restoration parameters." Rodriguez's eyes met Kelvin's. How fitting would it be if we restored the world of those who established the policy of non-interference, to bring life back to the place where the decision to only watch was first made. Kelvin felt something shift inside him, a perspective changing like continental plates moving beneath an ocean of certainty. He had spent his entire career learning to observe, to document, to never interfere. But these humans, they had taken interference and turned it into an art form, a mission, a moral imperative. "The Council will never approve," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The Council already owes us for saving 37 of their worlds," Rodriguez reminded him. "And we're very good at dealing with debt. Besides," he added with a characteristic human grin, "we're not asking for permission. We're going to do what humanity does best. We're going to help, whether they want us to or not." As the humans continued their frenzied research, Kelvin realized he was witnessing more than just the repayment of a debt. He was watching the birth of a new galactic order, one where the power to save civilizations meant more than the tradition of watching them die. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient worlds waited to be reborn, their long-dead soil ready to feel the touch of life once again. Tables turned. The great halls of the Collective Council had never been so silent. Supreme Counselor Vextra stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, her scales pale with distress as she delivered the news that would shake their civilization to its core. "The calculations are verified," she announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The quantum cascade failure in our sun cannot be stopped through any known collective technology. We have less than 5 years before our homeworld becomes uninhabitable." The irony was not lost on anyone present. For millions of years, the collective had watched other civilizations face extinction. Now they faced the same fate. Their own world, the heart of their vast civilization, was dying. Admiral Sarah Chen, now Earth's representative to the collective, sat quietly in the observer section. The humans had been granted this status 2 years ago, after their restoration projects had saved hundreds of worlds. She watched as the council descended into chaos, arguments erupting in a dozen different languages. Our evacuation protocols, one counselor began, would take 15 years to implement fully. Another cut in. We don't have that kind of time. Chen's communicator buzzed softly. The message was from Earth's Scientific Council. Solution ready. Waiting for your signal. She smiled, remembering a similar council chamber on Earth 8 years ago, when they'd learned of their own world's salvation at the hands of a single compassionate observer. Now the tables had turned in a way no one could have predicted. The council recognizes Earth's representative. Vextra announced suddenly, bringing the chamber to silence. Every eye turned to Chen as she stood. 8 years ago, she began. Your people saved our world when you had no obligation to do so. One observer chose to break your most sacred law because he believed that saving a civilization was more important than watching it die. She paused, letting the words sink in. Today, we offer you the same choice. The holographic displays around the chamber came to life, showing detailed schematics of Project Phoenix's latest iteration. But this wasn't the same technology they'd used to restore dead worlds. This was something new. What you're seeing is the culmination of 8 years of human innovation, driven by our determination to repay our debt. Chen continued. We call it Project Lazarus. It's not just capable of restoring a dying world. It can stabilize and rejuvenate a dying star. The chamber erupted again, but this time with sounds of disbelief and hope. Vextra's scales had regained some of their color. This technology, you've tested it 3 times on uninhabited systems, Chen confirmed. We've been preparing for something like this since we first learned about our own brush with extinction. We humans believe in being prepared to repay our debts in kind. The energy requirements would be astronomical, one of the scientific counselors protested. Already solved, Chen replied. We've adapted our restoration technology to create stable quantum energy matrices. We can power the entire process using just 2% of your sun's current output. Vextra's expression was unreadable. And what would humanity want in return for this? Salvation. Chen's response was immediate and firm. Nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. Nothing. Vextra repeated, mandibles clicking in confusion. Your people saved us because it was the right thing to do, Chen explained. One of your observers chose compassion over protocol, and that choice gave humanity a future. We're not offering to save your world because we want something in return. We're offering because now we can do for you what you once did for us. She gestured to the schematics still floating in the air. But we do have one condition. When this is done, when your world is saved, the collective must abandon its policy of non-interference. No more watching civilizations die. No more passive observation of extinction events. The galaxy is filled with life that could be saved, cultures that could be preserved, worlds that could be restored. The council chamber buzzed with whispered conversations, centuries of tradition warred with the instinct for survival. Chen waited patiently, knowing that sometimes the hardest thing for any civilization was admitting that their way of doing things needed to change. Finally, Vextra spoke. You would trust us with this technology. After we spent millions of years watching others die. We trust you to learn from the past, just as we did, Chen replied. Humanity's first act after being saved was to find ways to save others. We believe you'll do the same. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. As Chen watched the council formally abandon their policy of non-interference, she sent a simple message back to Earth. Begin Project Lazarus. In the days that followed, as human ships arrived to begin the process of saving the collective's homeworld, many remembered the words of a disgraced observer who had once broken every rule to save a single planet. Zarkax had believed in humanity's potential. He had been right. but not in the way anyone had expected. The debt humanity owed had been repaid not just in technological advancement or saved worlds, but in something far more valuable. A fundamental change in how an ancient civilization viewed its role in the galaxy. The age of observation was over. The age of intervention had begun. The greatest currency. Zarkak stood at the observation deck of the new Galactic Restoration Center, his aged scales reflecting the light of 1,000 holographic worlds spinning in the air around him. Each sphere represented a civilization saved, a world restored, a species given another chance. 10 years had passed since he'd broken the collective's most sacred law to save Earth, and nothing in the galaxy was the same. Still counting them? A familiar voice asked. He turned to find Dr. Sarah Chen approaching, her hair now streaked with gray, but her eyes still bright with the same determination he'd first observed in humans a decade ago. 2,847 restored worlds, he replied, and another 300 currently in process. When I saved Earth, I never imagined that we'd be really, really bad at staying in debt. Sarah finished with a smile. You should have studied our history more carefully. Humans have a habit of taking things to extremes. Around them, the center hummed with activity. Teams of humans and collective species worked side by side, coordinating restoration efforts across the galaxy. What had started as humanity's drive to repay their debt had evolved into the greatest cooperative endeavor in known history. The Council has asked me to come out of exile, Zarkax said quietly. They want me to head the new First Contact Division. Apparently, my experience in breaking all the rules makes me uniquely qualified to write new ones. Sarah laughed. Well, you did start all this. Seems fitting you should help guide where it goes next. A new alert flashed across the holographic display. Another signal detected. Another civilization on the brink. But unlike the past, there would be no passive observation, no detailed documentation of their extinction. Instead, ships were already being prepared, restoration technology readied. You know what the most remarkable thing is? Zarkax mused, watching the rescue mission coordinate. It's not the technology, impressive as it is. It's how humanity's approach to debt has transformed galactic society. He gestured to the teams working around them. Species that had once been bound by rigid hierarchies of obligation and debt now collaborated freely, sharing knowledge and resources without keeping score. The human concept of paying it forward had spread through the galaxy like a benevolent virus. We never really understood debt before you humans showed us a different way, he continued. We saw it as a burden, a chain. You saw it as rocket fuel. A young collective researcher rushed past, excitedly showing the human colleagues some new data. Their enthusiasm reminded Sarah of those early days when humanity first gained access to the collective's archives. You want to know the real secret? Sarah asked, turning to face her old friend. It was never about the debt. Not really. It was about what happens when you show someone kindness without expecting anything in return. You saved us because it was right, not because you wanted something from us. That's why we worked so hard to repay you, not because we had to, but because we wanted to prove your faith in us was justified. The holographic display shifted, showing the collective's homeworld, now thriving again after humanity's intervention. But it wasn't just surviving. It had become a beacon of the new way, a symbol of how salvation freely given could transform both the saved and the Savior. The Council's philosophers have been debating something interesting, Zarkax said. They say that gratitude, freely given and properly understood, might be the most powerful force in the universe, stronger than gravity, more valuable than any resource. Well, they're not wrong, Sarah replied. Look what it made us do. Revolutionize environmental science, develop new energy sources, invent ways to save dying stars, all because we wanted to say thank you properly. A new alert caught their attention. Another civilization discovered, this one just beginning to face the environmental challenges that had once nearly ended humanity. But now, thanks to the protocols humanity had helped establish, they wouldn't face those challenges alone. You know what the best part is? Sarah asked, watching the response teams mobilize. Every civilization we save together, every world we restore, they don't start their interstellar journey in debt like we did. They begin with an example of what's possible when different species work together. Zarkax's scales rippled with emotion. So it wasn't humanity owing us a favor that changed everything. It was humanity showing us what a favor truly means. Exactly, Sarah nodded. The greatest currency isn't gold or energy or even knowledge. It's the endless cycle of kindness freely given, of help offered without expectation, of gratitude expressed through action rather than obligation. As they watched another rescue mission launch, Zarkax reflected on his decision 10 years ago. He had saved one world, broken one law, created one debt. That debt had been repaid 1,000-fold, not through subservience or service, but through humanity's relentless drive to transform an obligation into an opportunity. The galaxy had learned that the last thing you wanted wasn't humanity owing you a favor. It was missing the chance to see what humans would do with that favor. They had taken a debt and turned it into a revolution, transformed gratitude into a force that saved worlds. And somewhere out there, new civilizations were emerging, looking up at the stars and wondering if they were alone. Thanks to one observer's choice and humanity's response, they would find not just other life among those stars, but a galaxy ready to help, to teach, to save. Not because of duty or debt, but because that's what you did when you had the power to help. That was humanity's greatest lesson to the galaxy, and their greatest repayment of all.